here we go.
A musical instructor at a school. Music scene. Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened. So you're a musical director.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let me get a couple bars of like a amazing.
How sweet the sound that saved like thee.
That bro can sing. You know what I'm saying? Once you give me the version, just gotta, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. You got shot. Let me see the hood kid. Let me see the hood. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. Here's what I want you to catch. First time he lied. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards purpose. How do I know? A lot of people.
So, what do you think? Main takeaway from the video. Anybody? Anybody?
I think for me, when I know my why, I'm more motivated, determined, to, I guess, define my what and go after my what.
It really makes a difference, doesn't it? So.
What?
I was just going to agree with that, and I think for me, from time to time I lose sight of my why, and actually coming back to my why is what then helps me to refocus on where I need to be, and it's a good reminder.
Thank you. So we kind of have to start here, and the discussion is about, you know how to do recovery coaching. Everybody here has been through the CCAR Academy. And you went into the CCAR Academy knowing something about how to interact with other people. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have signed up for the Academy. And it's about moving forward, how do we get better at doing this thing that for most of us we love to do? And so it really does begin with knowing not just how, but knowing our why and living into that as fully as possible during each interaction, both with our peers as well as with our colleagues and other stakeholders. And that's really the challenge of doing this work. So once you kind of know your why, the second question is, so what's the mission of the organization that you belong to or the program that you're providing service in? So I work for an organization whose mission it is to provide experienced peer support by advocating for self-directed care and providing services that help people move to whatever their next step is. That is the organization's mission. What is your organization's mission? And that was not a rhetorical question. So I'm assuming most of you get paid either in money or in status to do the services that you're providing. What is the mission of your organization? And if you don't know it, I invite you to get on the internet right now, Google your organization, look at their webpage, because it's probably on there. And if you don't know it, write it down. Get to the place where you can say, I am here on behalf of, fill in the blank of the name of your organization, and our mission is to. And to do it with as much conviction as you can. And fundamentally, this is about sort of the hierarchy of, here's my why as a person in recovery. And then secondly, here's the why of this organization that is sponsoring me being able to connect with you. And the degree to which we can build those connections between our why and our organization's why will directly impact what we're going to talk about for the rest of today, how we know whether or not we're getting better at it. Make sense? Comments, reactions?
I would say, being disconnected from your organization's mission statement would explain a lot of unhappiness in workplaces or career choices. So that's a great way to kind of flip it around and say, okay, how can I become more connected with the mission and my why, and maybe either strengthening that or moving on.
Yeah, and Aaron, sometimes it is kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You kind of have to work at getting all those things aligned just right. Sometimes it can seem like bureaucracies are kind of taking a left when you want to go right. So you've heard this. I don't know if you've heard it recently. If you went to the academy, you did. But the mission of the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery is, along with the organizing recovery community, to put a face on recovery and provide recovery support services. We also promote recovery from alcohol and other drug addiction through advocacy, education, and service. CCAR strives to end discrimination surrounding addiction and recovery, open new doors and remove barriers to recovery, maintain and sustain recovery regardless of the pathway, all the while ensuring that all people in recovery and people seeking recovery are treated with dignity and respect. So that's not just a nice paragraph. That sets the framework for everything that happens under the CCAR banner, including this learning collaborative. So I hope this helps connect some dots for you. These aren't just nice words that are on websites or in marketing materials. It's about how we incorporate this vision and mission and the underlying values into the services that we provide. And it's about hooking our wagon up to that hierarchy of missions. So, got a couple of what I call ego agreements, engagement guidelines, and observables for our time together. Just want to review these real quickly. Can y'all see my screen again? Let me make sure. Okay, good. Thank you. So multitasking isn't productive or respectful or healthy. I ask you to bring all of yourself and sustain your attention on this symposium for the next 31, 32 minutes. To create a sense of engagement, please turn on your camera and unmute your microphone except when conversations or distractions occur in your environment. I promise if you don't check your email or your instant twit face and all those other electronic things that are just screaming for our attention, I agree to be crisp, cogent, and on point. If you can encourage me and bring enthusiasm to interactions, I'll lean in to understand your perspective and reflect even more energy to what you contribute. The purpose of this meeting isn't to fill an hour. It's to communicate ideas and the associated emotions and to find out what could be better via engaged or appreciative conversations. What else would help make this a more safe and respectful place to maximize your learning today? Anything you want to add? Okay. So if you would, open up your web browser, type in responseware.com, or if you're in the notes document, just click on that link and it will open up your web browser automatically. You'll see a place where it says enter as guest and type in CARES or CARES. And what I'd like to do is have you answer some poll questions. So the first poll question is, I am A, select all that apply, a peer recovery support service provider. B, a peer recovery support service provider supervisor. Or C, a peer recovery support service provider program manager or director. See, we've got 3 responses so far. Good, we're up to 4. Give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, up to 5. Our survey says. So can y'all see the results on your screen? Nice. Things actually work sometimes the way they're supposed to. So all right, so 4 folks are recovery coaches. We've got 1 supervisor, 1 program manager. Oh, and then the other option was in the wrong meeting, but I think I'll stay. And nobody selected that one, which is odd because usually at least 1 person will choose that option. I guess I didn't say it out loud. Good. So appreciate the supervisors in the room, and you've got a tough job. And as difficult as it might be to be a recovery coach, there's another level of complexity to being a supervisor. I just really want to start off acknowledging that and to just validate the relevance and the significance of the role that you play. Second poll question. I most love working with A, people, B, numbers, or C, I love working with both people and numbers equally. What do you think? That was fast. Y'all getting good at this. Sandy, the meeting ID is CARES, CARES. All lowercase. I don't know if it matters about the case or not, but anyway, all lowercase. Our survey says well, what do you know? We're a bunch of people. Or purple people eaters? No, not purple eaters. So I've been doing this work for, well, I've told you, 30 years in recovery, but I started in the field about 50 years ago, actually. And so it's about the fact that there's really two sorts of people that I run into in this work. And one are the folks that are really good at engaging with other people. You know, you're the folks that are able to establish rapport, and there's this connection that happens relatively quickly with most of the folks that you run into. And then there's those who you're really good with numbers and you think analytically and quantitatively about things. And it's the rare bird who can do both really well. And you see here, yeah, hardly anybody acknowledges that they're both left brain and right brain. You're capable of shifting between the two. We tend to be one or the other. Now that's a myth. It's not true. All of us have both hemispheres in our brain. If I were to ask you what your telephone number is right now, you could tell me. Well, most of us. The fact that we've got cell phones nowadays, it's sometimes hard to remember numbers. But if I were to ask you, for example, your Social Security number, you have that capacity. And so part of the reason why I'm focusing today on this metrics challenge is because it genuinely is a challenge for most people. We think what's really valuable is that I have this connection with people and that I'm paid to do that. Well, yeah, that's half the job. The other half is your responsibility for promoting your own professional development, literally at getting better at what you do. And numbers can help with that. And that's the focus here today. So one more poll question, at least for now. My team reviews, then discusses key performance indicators or KPIs at least monthly. Team A would answer that true. Team B would answer that false. Team C is, what is a KPI? Got one response. Now we're coming in. Sand, were you able to get logged in to the poll? Nice. Yeah, now everybody's logged in. Got 6 answers. Our survey says. Nice. So about half of you on a regular basis get together, probably with your other peers and your supervisor, and you talk about what are the performance metrics or what's the data that matters both to your funders as well as to your organization, as well as to your directors, your managers, your immediate supervisor, and yourself. And then others not so much. So for those of you who are on Team A, true, what's the value of doing that on a regular basis for you? Why do you do it?
In my team, we do it to see how we can improve the service that we provide to the young people that we work with.
Excellent. And so it's a way of monitoring that progress.
Yeah.
And Sandra says it keeps them on track. Identifies the things that need addressing that may not have been thought of. Wow. So having those multiple perspectives in the room talking about those key performance indicators sometimes allows new ideas to emerge. And NAFEB says that it helps to identify the gaps. So this is kind of the, I don't want to say tedious, but this may be the challenging part of being part of an organization and spending time interacting with some other people besides service recipients that can almost seem to sort of get in the way. And I don't mean that literally, but if in today's capitalistic world, if we don't pay attention to are we providing enough services, it can have an economic impact on the program. And so often the premium is put on having as many interactions as possible because that's the metric that really is valued, that we get paid by. But spending this time together, talking about and processing what's going on, what's working well, and what the challenges are, is how the program itself gets better. And if we can demonstrate that over time, it shows an increase in the value that we add to our community. So it's not less important than the one-on-one or group interactions we have with service recipients. It's at least as important as that, I would submit. So, Elizabeth says she's got to change her answer from C to A. We meet monthly to discuss numbers and processes and implementation, but have never been referred to as KPI, and it is a research grant, so all numbers, it's all numbers here. Although the previous answers, I like working with people, not numbers. I appreciate that honesty, Elizabeth. And that's kind of the fundamental truth here. I don't want to, I know this is pushing you to the boundaries, many of you, to the boundaries of what you're most comfortable doing. And I want to acknowledge that up front. Numbers are strange animals. And you kind of have to, for some of us, we have to force ourselves to become friends with them. But like Elizabeth is saying, it's almost a necessary evil. And how do we get used to things we're not comfortable?
We don't do our numbers.
Yes, go ahead.
this is something that we're starting to implement now. You know, we meet weekly as a group, and we discuss what was working, what's not working. But since our last meeting, I brought this up to start tracking these things. So I see us strengthening as a team already, but we're still not super consistent with it. So, you know, any advisement on how to kind of start something like this up is as simple as tracking on paper like we did for homework, or yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking. We don't do it.
Sounds like you're on the right track, and I want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you recognize not everybody's in the same boat on this. Not everybody's quite there yet. And it is a culture shift. It is a culture shift. That was weird. Okay. So, and there'll be people who get it immediately, and there may be some people on the team that, yeah, not so much. And part of the challenge is to not separate people into cliques. You know, the we get it, we're on board, and the no way, no how group. And I think the process of periodically and regularly reviewing the numbers, reviewing the data, is a way of bringing people along. And when we're uncomfortable, the best way to manage that is to sit with other peers and say, I'm uncomfortable, and here's why. And to create the environment where those sorts of discussions can happen without people feeling like, yeah, you shouldn't feel that way. No, it's about, yeah, you feel that way. And when they get the sense of being heard, understood, and respected, that opens the door to a maturing of the process and their sustained engagement. Because if you're going to get together and do it once a week or once a month and everybody knows it, if you're celebrating the metrics that show improvement, who doesn't want to be part of that team? So, Aaron, I appreciate you bringing up the challenge, because this isn't just really sort of, it sounds much more simple than it actually is in practice. So, Ilana, I apologize if the audio is kind of wonky. I'm not quite sure. It's kind of changing on my end too. But I appreciate you bringing up the question. Okay, so KPIs. It's a funny sort of phrase or description, but basically we're talking about numbers. But key performance indicators are the key indicators of progress about moving toward an intended result. And I'm not going to read through all of this. This is in the notes document, so you all certainly are capable of reading and can follow through yourself. But I do want to mention the Peter Drucker quote. He's one of the management gurus of the last 30 years. And basically his famous quip is that what gets measured gets done. So whether we're talking about yourself, your family, your work team, or your organization, those things that get measured are what people will focus their attention on. And so it's about being able to set targets and to describe what you actually have done in progression to reaching targets that key performance indicators and prognosticators are all about. So there's really two kinds of metrics. The first is a quantitative metric, which means it's something that you can, in fact, really measure. It's objective. It's typically some sort of activity that can be counted. It's like beans that you can count how many there are. and it's not subject to interpretation or prejudices or feelings or people's opinions. The other kind is a qualitative metric, and these are open to feelings and tastes and opinions. And it's not necessarily that one's better than the other, but they're different sorts of things. So when you get together with your team and you're talking about the numbers, it's important to acknowledge the affective or the emotional component that is underneath the surface of those numbers. And some people are going to be much more interested in talking about how they really feel good about the fact that they worked with 20 peers last week, and of those 20, 15 of them made significant progress in their recovery. And they really are worried about the 5 that didn't. And underneath all of that is the feeling good about the 20 and the feeling not so good about the 5. And you can choose which of those you focus on in terms of the feelings or the numbers. And it's not an either or proposition that I'm suggesting here. It's both and. So yes, talk about the numbers, but create environments where it's equally relevant for the personal feelings and stories to be shared. And frankly, this isn't about problem solving. It's not, oh, let's jump on what those 5 are and figure out what's going wrong there. That is typically the response of clinicians. What I'm suggesting in peer support that's different, and in performance support, what's different is to spend at least 3 months time celebrating those 20 successes as you do exploring those 5 challenges. Because, as Peter Drucker said, what gets measured is what gets done. And so much like we did at the start of the meeting today, if you don't celebrate recovery, you spend all your time talking about all the problems and what we need to do differently. You're kind of, the telescope is kind of focused on the wrong thing. Not completely. There's room for those discussions about what you might do differently. Just please don't forget to celebrate what's working and what's going well. So I asked last month, that you put some metrics into this spreadsheet, and I appreciate those who did. And we've got a list from Elizabeth and a list from Aaron. I want to invite either or both of you to just talk some about the relevance of thinking through what are the key metrics for the program that, or the services that you provide. What's the benefit of this? And Aaron, you've already talked about, you've started a process of getting together with your service providers and talking about this on a regular basis. What else comes to mind now about this exercise?
I think for me, it kind of just shows the collection of what the services that we're offering. We only have one program right now that's really evidence-based. The rest of it is more soft, like life skills and groups that we've created based on our lived experience. So we're starting to try to bring in more of those evidence-based pieces and working more hands-on in our individual sessions. So we just created a Zen room where we can actually practice these skills when we can't get out and mingle out in the community. So trying to pull all of those pieces in is so we can start having a stronger all-around recovery service. And
I really like the fact that you brought up the phrase du jour these days. That's evidence-based practices. The clinical world is obsessed with that. I'm intentionally using that term. It has meaning and value. I'm not devaluing it. I want to highlight it and say what you're doing now with your team is applying evidence-based practices. And here's the twist: to demonstrate what you're doing produces the results you want. And you do that with practice-based evidence of effectiveness. So kind of flipping that phrase around. Yeah, there's lots of evidence-based practices out there, but are you implementing it with fidelity to produce practice-based evidence of effectiveness? It's both sides, or it's both of those phrases that allow us to demonstrate to some extent the unique value and worth of our services. Just saying, oh, I do evidence-based practices, well, that and a quarter will get you a cup of coffee at McWaffle Hut. But if you can then say, and here's my evidence that we're actually having the intended impact, that's what gets us where we want to go. Elizabeth, you want to jump in here and talk about your metrics?
Well, I wasn't entirely sure, what I was supposed to put, but basically, I put like which organization or what I'm currently doing. So I'm an expert coordinator, and then here I'm a peer collaborator on a second grant at ETSU, and then I became a student this semester. But anyway, for the expert coordinator, that's my 100% job. I started in September. We were able to start doing intakes after our IRB was approved, I guess, late October. Anyway, so we've done about 100 brief interventions on the last meeting, policy meeting that we had done. And out of those 12 clients, I do brief treatment with. And then we had 6 referrals except into medicated addiction treatment. And out of those, 4 have stayed, and they're doing really well. I consider those just kind of, success stories. They have jobs now. They're just, they're completely different people. They're in recovery. They have hope. I've enrolled 42 individuals in the expert program. Just things like that. And then recently started on the STARS grant, and that's it's basically a study of all MAT clinics who are implementing peer services in the Appalachian region. And so I've had to map out like try to map out all of the MAT clinics and MOUD clinics in the Appalachian region of Tennessee and West Virginia, which is all of West Virginia. And like that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy interaction with other people. But I've found myself being the only peer recovery support specialist at East Tennessee State University. I'm in a group of academia and research, and so it's very different for me, and it's a process. But I mean, there's some progress.
So you're not just in with bureaucrats; you're in with academic geeks, and that's another whole world. So
it is. It's very different. Every process is different.
So Elizabeth, have you and I talked before now? Was there any coaching that you got from me? Did I pay you to say the things that you just said?
No.
Okay, thank you. I want to highlight, do y'all get the relevance of the story that she just told using the data or the metrics or the KPIs that she has collected, and the value of being able to tell that story? I mean, that was absolutely perfect. So that's the...
It does help to see the good in it.
Yes. And yes, numbers matter, but it's the story behind the numbers. It's the left brain and the right brain. And this is the piece, Aaron, I think that for the people who aren't yet on board, they want to hear their name in those stories of success. It's built into us. We want to be part of what's working. And the way Elizabeth told that story, using the data, the people who are being served and the service providers get the recognition. And it's through that celebration that we create more motivation for more people to experience the benefits of this thing you and I call recovery. I could not have scripted this any better.
And if you scroll over to metric 9 and 10, you'll see that, metric 8 is, I've been able to show that, recovery is possible. Number 9, I think most importantly, is giving hope to those who felt that they had no future at all. And then number 10, one of my success stories, they are determined, and I have faith, will become a certified peer recovery specialist.
Wow. I don't know that I can add anything of more value to what she just said. So, here on this spreadsheet that you have access to, I just threw in some random ideas. I don't even want to go through all of this, about certain metrics that most programs consider to be most important. Now, again, there's a lot of mosts in those, so these are just suggestions. And I want to specifically focus on what's the difference between a planned or successful discharge, a planned transfer or successful discharge, and an unplanned transfer or unsuccessful discharge. In the clinical world, we talk about discharges. It's a strange concept to me, because if I think in terms of the human body, discharges are things that are often not particularly palatable. Sometimes they're enjoyable, but so I'm suggesting an alternative language, and that is transfer. People come into your service and they go out of your service. So planned transfer means the person reached a point at which goals have been met and they were moving on. And that moving on process was planned. Unplanned transfer just means the person left. And that reframe is relevant. So I just offer these as some ideas for those of you who are just getting started in this process to identify what are the key metrics for your team. And I realize we are at time. So comments, questions, feedback, what'd you like? What might make next month's session even better?
I had a very nice time today. I'm really liking how to understand, like you said, how to put value to what we do, and celebrating. It's something that I'm going to start bringing back as just to have highlights we focus on. It's to be changed so often that we don't celebrate enough.
Good. Good. So I want to invite you to think about this homework. Bring to our learning community your programs. Call it KPI report. Probably don't call it that. What is your monthly report? And if you would, share it. And then also want to propose that there's probably folks on here really good at introducing yourself to peers very first time. So if you would come on next time, maybe ready to demonstrate how you introduce yourself to somebody who doesn't even know how to spell, understand peer support. And if you would, just click into that sign-up sheet, the facilitator sign-up sheet, and I'll be glad to contact you, and we can have a conversation about how you can have 10, 15 minutes to explain to us this thing that you do so well.
I feel like I should know this, but when is our next meeting?
Yeah, so glad you asked. It's actually going to be May 28th. So we do these on the last Friday or the fourth Friday of each month, 10 a.m. Very nice. Well, I enjoyed being with y'all and hope you have a good rest of your month and look forward to seeing your smiling faces again in May. Be well.
Thank you.